So on the screen, you see a program called Reaper. So I'm just going to go through a couple of things that you'll need. So the first is this program, Reaper. That can be found by going to reaper.fm. It is a free, I put free in quotes here, download, because you can use it for as long as you need to. You just have to click away a chat or a little box that pops up. The next one is MTolly's Onyxide Customs Toolkit. You can use any version, but well, not any version, preferably the latest. It's got most of the features you'll need. Then you'll need my toolkit, which can be found on my GitHub. Oh, and MTolly's GitHub is just github.com/mtolly. Then mine is Addy Mills. Just download the latest toolkit that I released this morning. And that should be all you need. Oh, and you'll need if you're wanting to compile Warriors of Rock, you will need a program that allows you to edit or live files, such as C3 tools or not Horizon, Velocity. So just have one of those ready. So, okay, so I am going to start here with, I'm basically going to show you how I did the Starlight custom that I released earlier today. I based it off the Rock Band version, but then made my own changes. So using the chart from RB4 to RB2, I'm just going to import my MIDI here. And to import a MIDI, you just grab it and drag it into the program. When it asks you to import, make sure this says 1.1 to make sure everything gets imported at the right time. And there we go. So this is the chart from Rock Band. And what I'm going to do is, oh, sorry, I should have mentioned, with the release of my toolkit, I added some files here. There's these 3 text files as well as this template.rpp. You'll need this one because that's the template for Reaper. And to do that, to open that, you simply go to Project Templates, open project and then open it. And then you want to save it as a template so that you can always come back to it later. So with this template, I'm going to remove the tracks that are duplicates. So basically, I'm going to select the colored tracks, delete them by just pressing delete. And clicking and dragging is done with the right mouse button in Reaper. So, and then I will click and drag the tracks that are in Rock Band, as well as events. So events is just basically for practice sections. There are notes in here, but they won't be used in the compiler. And then you should have 2 left over called Cameras Light Show. Those are extra tracks that will be read with the compiler to make your cameras and light shows in the game. The other ones can probably be deleted unless you happen to have some harmonies that you really want the player to sing. So I'm just going to select all of them and delete. And if you want, if you want to build the venue, base it off the Rock Band one, keep it just for reference, but I won't be. So. I probably won't play any audio here, just copyright issues and stuff, but I'll just kind of show what to do. So never mind, you mentioned the animations, and we'll go right into drums for the part drums for that. Now, when you use a template, the note name should already be filled out on the side. If you don't see it, perhaps go to the top here and switch around. So if it's hard to read, put it on the second one. And sometimes you may see a list. It doesn't mean that you're not reading the MIDI. It just means that it's in list mode. Just go to named notes and then you should see everything. It's a lot to take in, but basically just know that it goes expert, hard, medium, easy in descending order. It's got a bunch of extra other notes that I will kind of touch on, but most of these will actually be unused for Guitar Hero purposes. So I'll just go from the beginning, so never mind, you'll have to wait a few minutes. When you import a Rock Band MIDI, the notes will not be properly placed because Guitar Hero uses 5 lanes plus a kick, and Rock Band uses 4 lanes plus a kick, and then they switch between toms and cymbals. So we have to adjust for that, and I'm just going to change the color palette here. I might share this one too. Basically, I created this color palette so that you can easily see the colors. I'm not sure if I shared that. It might be in the GitHub, not necessarily in the release. So anyway, so now this changes. So when you look at a note, you see its color, and that's what it'll correspond to in-game. Now, all the green notes that are symbols should be orange, and most of them are in this song. But what you'll want to do is you see these notes up here that are also colored. So these in Rock Band are the toms markers, and they when they're notated, it turns the lane into a tom. So to properly chart these, to properly convert this chart, you'll want to go to all these toms and just change any yellow one to blue and any blue one to green, with just kind of keeping in mind the flow of the game of the drums. You'll want to move any blue notes that aren't covered to orange, because those usually symbolize rides, and those are generally placed on the orange notes. And oh, hello, Freg. And that's mostly it. Like, snare will be red. The kick will still be on the same note. There will be one extra note that you could use for double kick, only for Warriors of Rock, and that's just done on the note below the regular kick. And if you want to chart a note to that, so if you want to do a double bass chart, you'll basically have to select all the kick notes by right-clicking on the name. This will select them. You'll see they kind of turn dark. Holding Control, clicking on a single note, and just dragging it down. That places all the notes on the lower track. Now, there is some discrepancy as to the logic behind Warriors of Rock double bass. I believe you don't actually need to cover all, or basically you don't need to grab all the single notes, and you can just place the notes that are extra in this track. But that's not how it works for Guitar Hero Metallica or Van Halen. So if customs ever become available, I just made it so that you just need to place a note. Well, you don't need to place a note, but I personally place all the single kick notes into the double kick lane as well. So if you want to have an extra note here, you simply just double click in this lane and it adds a note. If you want to, and you can easily copy and paste as you would like text in a document. So if I wanted to copy a note here, I would just select it, hit Control C, Control V, and that places it in another lane, or in another place. So now, because I already made this, I'm not going to be continuing with this particular version for too long, but I will show now the animations. So if you're using or if you're converting a Rock Band chart, you most likely won't have to touch the animations at all, because the notes will already be in the proper spot. So if you look on the left-hand side, the drum animations start at 51 and go down to, well, usually they go down to about 25, I believe. But I added 4 extra ones for extra features that are in the Guitar Hero games, such as count-ins. In Rock Band, usually the count-ins are done in the music track itself, whereas in Guitar Hero, you can place notes and it'll play samples. You can also chart, you can also get the drummer to just animate just to get him to do the animation for the count-in, and you can just get the count-in to play by itself. So there are cases where this is used, so I just added that in. And then there's also the left foot for the kick, which is just Warriors of Rock. But yeah, it doesn't actually animate the left note, it just left foot, it just animates the right one. But so if you want to animate by yourself, say you have a blank animation here, you can, for World Tour, you don't actually have to animate left hand and right hand. You can basically just copy all the notes that are up here and drag them on all the way down, and then just place them in the proper spots. So, you know, the kick note would go to any kick, the snare would go to any snare, and the cymbals or the crashes would go to any of the crashes here. So this is 2 and 1. The hand location or the hand placement doesn't matter. You can just crash 1 is crash 1, crash 2 is crash 2. The left versus right only applies for Warriors of Rock. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention that's extra with the with the World Tour notes is that if you make a note or a non-kick note, velocity 127, and you can change a note's properties by selecting it, press Control F2, that brings up the properties. And if you want to make it an accent, simply change the note to 127. And if you want to make it a ghost note in Warriors of Rock, make it velocity 1. So it'll filter out, or it'll place the notes in its proper place once compiling to Warriors of Rock. And if you're converting to World Tour, these ghost notes will just be placed as normal snares. I may add a compiler flag in the future to ignore them if there's demand for that. But you can also just select all of the ghost notes by filtering for them. If you were to click on the filter, click note, and then type the click the velocity filter and just go 1 to 1, and that'll just filter out everything that isn't velocity 1, and you can just select them all and delete it. Other features that aren't in Rock Band or that are Guitar Hero exclusive are the drum fill. So there are maybe moments where there's some silence where you don't want the drummer to get penalized if he starts hitting notes. And that is just done on note 104. You would just click and drag how long you want the notes to last. Generally, you want a little bit of space between where the note ends and where it starts again, because there may be slight compiler timing issues where if it's done at the very edge, then this note will fall under that marker, and that makes it unplayable. So we generally want to avoid that. Star Power, or Overdrive, as it's called in Rock Band, is still the same note. It's 116. You would just highlight, or you would just place the note where you want it, and then all notes underneath for all difficulties will have that Star Power applied, just like in Rock Band. And I believe that's it for drums new features. So these notes up here, these are drum fill notes for Rock Band. They get ignored, as do the tom markers. And then, yeah, double kick only applies to expert. So does anyone have questions for that? Never mind. Did I answer your questions regarding animations? I'm gonna keep going. I'll see if it pops up. So the next is bass and guitar. So bass and guitar are done pretty similarly as well. Like, there's not that much that got added, but I will go through what did. Just and just going forward, Star Power will always be the same. So it'll always be note 116, and it applies to all tracks, even vocals. So I won't mention that going forward or anything that's similar. So with guitar, it's pretty similar to okay. So Bihan Art asks, do World Tour and War automatically convert 5-lane tracks to 4-lane for Rock Band drums like with the official song? Yeah, so that is correct. So the charts do automatically get converted to 4-lane. The logic does depend on the game. In World Tour up through Van Halen, the green gets put on blue, or sorry, the orange gets turned into a blue note. So like all symbols that are on orange will be on blue, and then Guitar Hero 5 and after, they get placed on the green. But yes, it is automatic. So with guitar, assuming you're familiar with how the chart, you know, you can just like if you are say exporting a chart from Moonscraper, these will look the same this way. There may be like notes that are like literally like a millisecond long, but this should look the same regardless of whether you grab an official Rock Band MIDI, a custom Rock Band MIDI from Rhythm Gaming World, or if you grab create your own Moonscraper MIDI. So with guitar, the force notes are the same. So you know you can force on, force off, and there's some logic you can change in the compiler, which I'll get to. Left-hand animations are done down here. So if you are playing a guitar, left hand lowest would be furthest away from the body, left hand highest would be closest to the body, and you can just place a note. Now, the length of the note don't really matter in Guitar Hero. In Rock Band, if there's a space, it'll try to move like it'll try to like slide to that note, however long the space is. But for Guitar Hero, you can just do single notes like this, and it'll look the same in game no matter what. So if you want to do a slide in Guitar Hero, you basically have to place a bunch of notes leading up to the position where you want them to play. Otherwise, I do a quick jump to to that note. So in terms of additions, there is the open notes for expert, hard, and medium. And those are the only 3 difficulties currently supported. 2 reasons, mainly because the currently the note below green is also the left-hand highest, like the highest note, animation note, and because official songs don't actually have open notes on easy. So I know we're not doing anything official, but that I kind of made that a reason for not supporting it right now. I will be adding a compiler flag, so in the compiler, so basically a checkbox there where you can opt to ignore this as an animation note and make it an open note. That will be in the future, or a future update. So, but if you want to make open notes, and again, I'll change this these colors here. And these are just the regular Rock Band ones that you get with if you follow any guide on Rhythm Gaming World. So I can link those in the VoD that I'll be uploading. But if you want to chart an open note, basically just all you got to do is create a note below green, and it's even colored purple for you for convenience, so that you know that that's the length. Now in World Tour, the length, although the length is coded in the file, sustains don't show up, but in Warriors of Rock it will. And you want to make sure that you can overlap open notes like this is legit, like this will work, but you cannot have an open note starting at the same time as a fretted note, because that will make the note impossible to hit. You just want to look out for that. Another addition is the tap note, so similar to the drum fill note, it's on 104, and marking this will make any note underneath it a tap note. So if I did that for this song in the intro, I made the whole little synth intro a tap part, and then every note under here just becomes a tap note, just like that. And I think I did it here as well, but and that's kind of it for additions to guitar. There wasn't that many. I mean, guitar didn't get innovated that much. These events down here don't really do anything. They're for Rock Band, so we'll move on to vocals for now. And vocals also don't have too much added. There is one thing, or 2 things I would say. So there's the freeform marker again, so that's 104. Basically anything that added something is note 104. And if you add 104 here, it turns the marker, or it adds a freeform section. So that's where you can make some noise to get some extra star power in the World Tour games, or just, I think you just get more rock meter in Warriors of Rock. So what you would do is you would create a phrase and a freeform. That one. Yeah, and there are 2 phrase markers, just because Rock Band has 2 phrase markers to separate player 1 and player 2. You can use either of these notes. I just use this one, 105, because that's the note that you'd use for Rock Band. I come from Rock Band, so a lot of these things relate to that. I know not everyone is, but again, if you have questions, please let me know. And that's it for vocals. That's the only really addition. All the pitches are the same, and I don't know how people chart vocals without Reaper, so I'm not quite sure how those vocals look, but basically you want to make sure that the notes are between 36 and 84. That seems to be the accepted range. That's the same as Rock Band. And then the events is basically just practice sessions. My compiler will turn any Rock Band section into its proper name, and you can also opt to do custom sections by simply double-clicking the text events, adding an open bracket, typing in section. That just tells the compiler, okay, this is a section I want to read. And now, depending on if there's an underscore in there or not, it'll either grab it from the list of Rock Band sections, or what you can do is you can just type in your section here. So you can just say, super awesome there. And when you compile, the compiler will just grab that and place that as the section name. So that's the only little bit of extra functionality there. And then now we'll get on to the new stuff. So cameras and light show are pretty fundamental to the game. And well, I mean, they're not fundamental to play the game, but they're fundamental to make it look nice. So it is done just so you can just double click. it should be preloaded with the names. Although if you are doing for World Tour Definitive Edition or Warriors of Rock, there is an extra. There are extra cameras that you can use. So this was a file that I linked into. I believe it's in the latest release, but if not, it might be the previous one. And that's just the MIDI note map for the Warriors of Rock camera cuts, and these should all work in Definitive Edition as well. So, creating cameras. So there isn't really a guide on to show what how cameras look, because it kind of changes depending on the venue as well as what loop animations are currently playing. So any of the ones that don't say mocap are venue dependent. So if you put a drummer stage note right here at the first note, depending on the venue you're in, it will change slightly. So, bigger arenas tend to have it coming from the back. Smaller arenas will have it kind of coming from the side. So you kind of got to experiment with that. And I actually highly recommend that you would grab files that Neversoft has created and convert them. I can show you how to do that with the toolkit, but basically it'll grab all the camera notes and light show notes, place them into a MIDI file for you to view. Now, any of the mocap ones, other than the drummer, because the drummer will always have the same animations per song, the mocap camera cuts change depending on the loop animation being played. So if you are using like a punk style animation and you place, singer mocap 1 here, it'll be different than if it was like the low key animation. So like the camera cuts change depending on loop animations. When you're making cameras for World Tour Definitive Edition or Warriors of Rock, where you can have multiple loop animations, the same note can play a different cut. So you just want to be sure of that, or make sure that you're selecting the right one. But they're pretty safe bets. Mocap 01 tends to be a shot from the front. Mocap 02 tends to be a shot from the back. That's not guaranteed for all loop animations, but that seems to be the case based on my testing. Any of these ones up here, long shot, mid shot, venue mid shot, they're kind of, and generic stage shots. These four are all kind of generic. They're usually long cuts. And they are generally further away from the players. Solo are close-ups, so bass and guitar will have either the camera going from the body to the headstock or the headstock to the body. That's that close-up shot. Drums would generally be very close up to the pads, and solo vocal tends to just be a close-up, like a different one to this one down here. Single, as far as I can tell, tends to just be a single shot of a single character. It's most likely a random cut of these ones. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't used it yet, in my honest confession here. The audience cam it doesn't place a camera on the audience. It actually is a camera from the audience, so it's like the perspective of the audience, so you'll see the backs of the audience's head. Zoom in and out are pretty straightforward. One's to zoom in, one's to zoom out. Spotlight camera is like the audience one, but higher up. So you can it's almost as if it was like a camera placed inside of the spotlight. These Jumbotrons are not supported in Warriors of Rock, I'm pretty sure, but they are in World Tour, and that actually just changes what shows on Jumbotron if the venue has it. So like it adds a camera cut. And then these ones are just kind of more dynamic cuts. They're kind of nice. These vert ones will start at the bottom and move vertically upwards on players. These drummer ones tend to go from behind, I believe. And then up here you have orbits. So these are generally higher, or like a high or a low orbit, and these will just kind of start from the guitarist or the bassist and move to the other one. So if it starts on the bassist, it'll move to the guitarist, and vice versa. And then one more thing: the length of the note is also the length of the camera animation. So if you want to slow zoom in, you'll want to just make a note that's, I don't know, say 4 measures long. So over the course of these 4 measures, it'll do that zoom in. If you want it to do is a note or a zoom in that's shorter, just shorten the note. The only thing I see is that if you have a gap between 2 camera notes, it can glitch out. It's rare, but I've seen it happen. So if you want to make sure, like after you've created your cameras, to say, You want, I don't know, create some random ones here. There. To say, you do this for the whole song. What I would do is I would just select all the notes. I would go to Actions, Show Action List, and look for an action called Legato. So it's called Make Notes Legato, Preserving Note Start Times. You double click it, and that'll make all notes touch each other. Or it'll make the note end as soon as the next one starts. And you cannot have multiple notes per track or per cut, so you can only have one cut at a time. And then the last section of note are these moment cameras. So there's 4 down here, and then there's 10 up here. Those are only used in band clips, and band clips are like the custom mocap for each song. I haven't delved too much into it, but if you have custom mocap and you want to, and a custom mocap can have custom camera shots, and that's how these would be shown using the moment cameras. So there's a lot of moments in a lot of songs, so these notes will actually change depending on which band clip is playing at the time. So light shows are one of my favorite parts because it allows you to make as wild or as calm lights as possible as you want. So there's, again, a lot of events here, but it may seem pretty daunting, but most of these you won't use. So I will start by just saying that it's quite hard to get started with this, but once you get a hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. And there's actually 2 ways of charting light shows. One was introduced with Warriors of Rock, and the other ones have been the same since Guitar Hero 3. So if you want to create a light show, by default, or sorry, let me go back. We have to talk about blending time. So basically, by default, if you don't place any like changing here, by default, the light show will always be at this one here, default, and that means that the lights will blend at 0.3, and the spotlights that you can activate will blend at another time, I believe, or it's either the light change time and the keyframe or the snapshot time, which I'll get into. It's like I said, it's kind of daunting. But basically, when you start out charting light shows, you want to say, okay, you want to start with the intro, and then wherever the song starts, say if it's a calm open like this one is, I use exposition. Now these names don't really they don't have any different logic. It's just it's basically just color and which lights are active on a venue. There is a website that you can go to, and I'll quickly show it here. On World Tour on the World Tour Definitive Edition website, they have a website that shows kind of how the different moods work. So this is the address here, ghwt.de/wiki, and then go to the SDK wiki, and then at the bottom there'll be light show previews that'll show you kind of pictures of what they look like. Now, you might see multiple pictures, and that's where these snapshots come in. So by default, once you go into a light mood, which is these notes here, it'll go to mood 1. So say climax. Say we do a climax note, and I'll do that right here. Okay. So the climax has 4 different states. Now, if I want to go from 1 to 2, all I do is I place a note on the advanced snapshot note. So, so at measure 3, it'll kick into climax. Measure 4, it'll go to the next state. And because I didn't place any blend time notes yet, it'll blend it into at 0.3 seconds. So it's pretty quick. If you want to change how quick it blends, you have to place a blend note before the next note. So say I don't want this to blend at 0.3 seconds. I want it to blend at 1 second. I will place a note here before the next state change. And now every note after this, including mood changes, will blend at 1 second. And if you want to go above, or if you want to go in between these notes, that can be done too. You can actually create a text event. So at the bottom of your screen, make sure it says text events, double click, and this will bring up the add text event box. Make sure the type is text event, and what you want to type here is type in set blend time with a space and then followed by your blend time in seconds. So say I wanted to blend for 2 seconds or 2.5, I could simply type 2.5, and now it'll read it, and then the game will blend this note over 2.5 seconds. So it'll take 2.5 seconds to reach the next state. You can place a note, like another note, before the time is up. It'll just blend into the next one at that time. It'll basically cut to the finished state and start blending from there. Hello, Atief. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Anyway, welcome. There is more. So the spotlights are up here. If you want to enable, so there, each player has a different note. One to enable and one to disable. So if you want to enable it, just click a note or put in a note here, and if you want to disable it later, place another note there. So it'll be enabled from here all the way to there and then cut out. You can change the color of the spotlights with these notes up here. Default is white, and you'll just want to, if you just want to place it before the note if the spotlights aren't on. But if you can also change it during spotlight being on. So say halfway through, I want this to turn back to white. I just place a note right here. So, and then there's two more things. So, oh, you might have noticed there's two advanced states. So state advanced notes, that's what these advanced snapshot notes are. Those are the same. So whether or not I place it here or here, it still goes forward. It's not like Rock Band where there's a next and a previous. It always goes forward. And then one special thing about strobes is that if you want to strobe, you have to, or it's highly recommended, you place the blend time to 0, place your strobe, and then just place the advanced notes for however long you want the note to go for. Now keep in mind that the strobe will be on by default and then turn off. So if you want to strobe at 30-second notes, or sorry, at 16th notes, you want to place them every 30-second note so that it turns on at every second note there. And then the last thing are pyros. So pyrotechnics, like the fire. So each venue has a front, top, mid, and back set of pyros, and they can you can either activate them one at a time. So say I want to do front, top, mid, and back. So that'll activate all pyros at the same time using event 1. And the different events are just the types of pyro. So event 1 tends to be sparklers. Event 2 tends to be firewall. Maybe that's event 3. It's quite different, and it also depends on the venue. So I would recommend playing around with that. And then if you want just a generic event, they happen to have a note for that called the pyro generic event. So if placing a note here will just make some fire happen on the stage. It's quite nice, you know. If you it's quite a nice way to like start a chorus or something. But then you have more control with these notes down here. Now Warriors of Rock also has its own event. It basically, from what I can tell, is just a combination of front and mid, and just play some fire there, or shoot some fire there. Now, there's one note I haven't talked about yet, and that's because it kind of changes the whole charting of the light show. So this note up here is called the toggle note length note, and what this does, it actually cuts out blend times entirely. So I'm just going to delete this. Cuts out blend times entirely. So if you place this as the first note, now the game will look and say, okay, however long this note is, that's how long I'm going to take to blend into that light event. So say we place this note here, and then almost immediately it starts fading into a blackout before the song starts here. And then if you want to start playing around with these moods, you can say, okay, quickly blend into rising action, and there we go. You can then simply you can just simply place notes for the length that you want the blends to happen, and then the game will just do it for you. No need to calculate, you know, how long is this measure, like how long will I need to blend this for. You can simply do it straight up with the length of the note, which I thought was quite nice. The only downside I can see is that strobes don't tend to be as flashy, but there may just be a way around that I haven't figured out yet. So after you've done this, so I'm just going to open the project that I did. Okay, so here, this is the final project that I worked on, and I won't show the drums or bass. Well, I could. Actually, I didn't add. I just remembered I didn't add the freestyle notes or the drum fill notes. So I'll just show the bass one because I added a bunch of open notes. As you can see, you know, there's these open notes. There's the star power, and then I made sure to force these off so that you don't have hammer-ons just like the other chart. Now for the cameras and light show, I'll just show you these quickly. I'm just going to open them both at once, so you'll see the cameras first with the light, with the lights show kind of ghosted in the background, and I'll go to that in a bit. You can see I made all these notes. Actually, I'll just do the single. You can see I created all these notes. There's some long cuts, there's some shorter cuts, and these will all play as it shows. Oh, and one thing I did mention is camera FOV effects. So what you can do is in the middle of a cut, you can actually add some effects to it. And these come from Guitar Hero Metallica and have been forward ported ever since. So all of the games, and World Tour has it now too, Definitive Edition. You can set, I can quickly show you, there's 8 of them. I'm just going to open up my my iCloud notes here and you can see. So there's these ones here. You can place any of these as a text event in the camera's array or the camera's track, and it'll allow you to place these quick zoom outs, and I'll quickly show you how that looks with the video here. So you will hear music, so I will probably have to copyright this or I'll probably get copyrighted on this stream, but that's okay. Give me 2 seconds to load up the video here. Okay, so what time? At 1:24. Okay. So I'm just going to get into the screen here. So you can see here, there's this text event called Zoom Out Quick Large 10. So what this will do at this point in time, it will, so it's going to be zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, and at this point, it'll actually stop the zoom in and then quickly zoom out. Now, I did this for a effect to match the song in the guitar. So basically, look out for, like in the video I'm going to show, look out for these 4 notes in quick succession, and then when the sustain comes, look out for the zoom. So I don't know how loud this will be, but I guess we'll find out together. Okay, so here it comes here. Look at the background. There. So they're zoomed out during that note. And that's kind of what they do. And then there's the 8 that I mentioned. There's there's zoom in, zoom out, and then there's quick, slow, and as well as small and large. So any of these combinations will work, as well as pulse 1, pulse 2, pulse 3, pulse 4, pulse 5. They will all work as well, and they have to be separated, or there has to be a number afterwards. So the number indicates how fast or how slow the camera should, the effect should go. So a larger number will make the effect go longer, even if you do a quick one. So if you do a zoom out quick large 1, that'll be a super quick zoom out, whereas a zoom out slow large 1 will be a lot slower. But you can make a quick zoom the same length as a large zoom just by lengthening or increasing the number afterwards. So to do it, just quickly or just simply put the name of the event, followed by a space and then a number. That's all you got to do. And I actually did another one at the end, which was during the outro. I did a zoom out slow large, and I modified it by 100. We don't actually know exactly what the modifier is here. It doesn't seem to be like, you know, if you do a 1, it's half as fast as a 2. There seems to be some exponential math in there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but the 100 was about how long, like opened the game a couple times, how long I wanted it to go for, which is 4 measures, and the zoom out actually stops around this time, which is what I wanted. So that's it for all events. So now I'll go to the compiler, unless somebody has questions regarding the notes. I know it was a lot, and like I said, I do plan to release an edited VoD of this. I am recording this, so if anyone has questions while I'm loading up the compiler, please let me know, and I will show you all how to do that. And I'll actually show it from scratch. Yeah, go ahead. You can ask general questions. I might get to it once, with the compilers, but yeah, go for it. Okay, so converting Rock Band to World Tour is, I actually touched upon that at the beginning of the stream. So you don't have to convert anything if you're pulling a Rock Band MIDI, because you can just import it into Reaper. You'll have to go, the only thing you'll have to really do is go into the drums tracks and then change the all the green symbols to orange, all the blue symbols to orange, and then modify the toms. So open up the original here. So I imported the track, I go to the drums, I'll change the color to make it look better on stream. Okay. So, well, actually, I'll show you how it looks at a drum, Rock Band first. So, anything that's green, just move it up for a bit. Anything that's blue and not a tom will need to be moved up as well. So this, for example, and then you basically just have to move it to match the names of the note tracks that you see. Now, if you're using the template, it'll be automatically filled in, so it'll show like this. So just make sure, say if these are all symbols, you want to make sure to put them in the orange note, which is currently colored green because I was there. So just make sure to put them in the orange note. I won't go through it again because I did go through it earlier, but feel free to watch the replay or ask me later, and I can maybe and I'll actually update my guides on the website as well. As for incorporating facial mocap, I will get to that, actually. That'll be part of the compiler segment that I'll go through. So just hang tight. Okay, so. Okay, so I am now in the latest executable of the toolkit. That's the one that I released this morning. So I am going to go through it as if you are starting from scratch. So basically, but I will load in my current project after I've done some basic things. So I'm going to go into the toolkit. That should bring up a command line. It might take, on the first boot, it might take a few seconds. Then you'll see this main menu. You'll want to hit number 1. That's the compiling function. And press enter. That brings up a graphic or a GUI. So this is the compiler. Currently, World Tour and Warriors of Rock are the only ones available. I'm working on Guitar Hero 3 and Aerosmith because they have PC versions. I might remove Guitar Hero 5 because customs aren't really a thing of that yet. And they're kind of a mixture between World Tour and Warriors of Rock, but we'll get there later. So anyway, I wanted to make this look, if you're coming from Rock Band, I wanted to make this look like Magma. So basically you have the separate tabs that indicate different things about the compiler. So it's pretty straightforward, and I'm actually going to move on to the Starlight one I created. So give me 1 second here. Okay. And also as a tip, you can actually make windows. So if it's currently just a white page, you can actually click on Open With, and point it to the toolkit, and it'll actually open up the projects right away instead of having to go through the menu every time and then go to compile and click open. So that'll allow you to quickly open up the compiler. So I have this. So this is currently from this morning when I released the song. So it's pretty straightforward. You enter the title of the song, whether you want it to be as made famous by or by. I do have plans to implement an other, so you can enter in your custom little blurbs there. It's currently not supported though, so just use by or as made famous by. If you do choose other, it'll just use by. So just for now, just those two, and that will activate this field, but like I said, not currently supported. Enter in the artist, the year, whether it's a cover. If you click this, it'll activate these two fields. So in World Tour, it'll allow you to enter in a cover artist as well as the year. Warriors of Rock will just have it say cover version, so I might actually disable it for Warriors of Rock, but that'll allow you to at least give proper credit. The genre, and that actually changes also depending on what game you have. So Guitar Hero World Tour only has these 8 available, and they're not very descriptive, but they basically, as far as I can tell, only change the pre-mades that you play with. So if you, like, for example, BYOB is actually listed as black metal, whereas in World Tour, it's clearly not a black metal song, but it will give the black metal prefabs, so the pre-mades. And that appears to be all it does. Warriors of Rock, actually there's a lot more available to you because of that. The checksum for World Tour doesn't really matter. It just needs to be all lowercase, and it can have numbers. I think underscores as well. So just do whatever you want. If you leave it empty, it'll just grab the title, lowercase. For this one, I added a custom one because I know that Starlight by Muse is also a popular song that will most likely be converted or has probably already been converted. So I just made that baby Starlight so that when the game loads it, it doesn't have any conflicts. And then the chart author only is for Warriors of Rock, where it'll place that in its little INI file. Sorry, World Tour, not Warriors of Rock. For Warriors of Rock, you'll notice that the checksum, in this case, changes. Now, if you're starting from scratch, it'll just change it to a blank. That's because I don't think black metal is in Warriors of Rock. It is in Guitar Hero 5, but they removed it, I'm pretty sure, in Warriors of Rock. I didn't see it in the official genre list. I can double check that real quick though while I talk about actually I'll do that right now. 1 second. Or maybe it is. I'll double check that. I might add it, but it'll be after. Anyway, after you're done this metadata tab, you can move on to the audio tab. So this is where you would select your audio for compiling. Now, you don't actually have to enter in the blank MP3. The compiler will do that for you. So you'll see this empty one here, and I'll just delete them all because it'll fill them in again. And I might just not fill them in, so it'll just stay blank, and then in the background it'll just fill it in. You'll want to at least have a file a file chosen in the backing. I don't believe the file type matters. I've only tested it with WAV, OGG, and MP3, and it seems to work for all three. But if you run into any errors, just let me know once you compile. If you want to add stems, you can just put in the different tracks in the different fields here. Drums does require 4, so what I do if I don't have 4 different drum stems is I use some filtering magic. Not really. I just grab certain frequencies and place that into kick, snare, cymbals, toms, so it sounds a little different when you miss a note, but it doesn't actually cut out the particular particular pad. Guitar-based vocals are pretty straightforward, and you can, if you have a custom crowd stem, you can also add it. But that one will most likely be blank, and it's actually blank for most official songs as well. The preview time, so you can either, so you'll have to choose where it starts. So in this case, this is, I believe, one of the choruses. So it goes minutes, seconds, milliseconds. And now you can either opt to choose the length of the preview, in which case 30 is what I chose, or you can set the end time, where it'll actually change then the values in here. So now it's going from 51,770 to 121,770. And there's a bug there. So you can swap back between them at will, and I'll have to make sure to fix that. There appears to be some overflow there. Or anyway, it's not a huge. It only reduces it by 1 millisecond. It's hardly noticeable. You can always go back up like that. Anyway, song data. This kind of has the. This will have the charts as well as the overrides, like the performance overrides, any animation files you have, song scripts, and I'll go through that. So for MIDI file, that's the MIDI file that you export from Reaper. And as a quick rundown to do that, what you'll want to do is select your tracks. So I'm going to select just the 7 original tracks. So the drum, the instruments, events, cameras, light show. Go to File, Export Project MIDI. Make sure this says Entire Project, and click Selected Items Only. And then go and save it. Browse where you want to save it, and save it. And make sure it's multi-track. And include the tempo time signature changes. So I won't do it because I already did that. And just make sure that, because if your MIDI's out of sync with the song, check to make sure that it was, make sure the tempo map got exported. So, the perf override. So that's actually going to be quite a thing to go through, and I'll load up some files, some text files here. That's probably one of the more difficult parts, I would say, but once you get that figured out, it's quite nice. Okay, so as part of the files included with the release, there's the blank performance, blank song scripts, and one called blank song scripts and in loops, and I'll get through that. I'll get to that eventually. So blank performance is a file. Okay, so it's just an array like this. It doesn't look like much, but this is where you put all of your performance data. And what I'll do is I might actually upload a version that has an example in it, because right now it's kind of sparse. So let me just go into Starlights, and you can see how it's meant to be used. So this is the performance for Starlight, and what you can see is it actually places events or scripts at certain times. For example, I've got some loops in here, so at the very start, it plays a no animation loop, and that's how it's done in this game. There's no simple idle real time like there is in Rock Band. It's all pretty robust in these games. So it includes loops, it includes facial animations, which Bihan you mentioned, and I'll get to how to sync those up. It also includes, actually I think that's all I included for this one. Those camera effects that I mentioned will get placed in here as well, but that's automatic, so you don't have to worry about that. And then, so it all follows this basic pattern. So this here is a single event. So you want to have open, I think these are called braces. So you want to have a pair of braces. You want to have the time equals whatever it is. SCR, which stands for script, in which case it's band play loop. And then you want to have a field called params, which are parameters. So in this case, you choose the vocalist, what male vocalist will do, female vocalist, and in this case, there's a parameter called start frame. So it's going to start at frame 300 or 10 seconds into the loop. For facial animations, it's pretty similar. So you have a time, you have the script. In this case, it's band play facial anim. And then the parameters are, so name is the name of the player, in this case vocalist, and anim is the ska file. So if you have a list of ska files, and I'll get to how to, well, I won't get to how to make them. The Oktoberfest made a guide on that, but I'll show you how to sync them. Ska files, so they're all in this folder here, and they'll actually be pointed to in this ska file field in the compiler. So you point to this folder, and it'll include all of these in the game or in the song. And you want to do that for each. Yeah, it's a lot. I understand, like, it's a lot to do, but it's that's how you get the game to actually read the lip sync. So I guess on that note, I can open Blender and I'll quickly show you how to sync lip sync. Don't remember where I saved that. Oh, here, Blender. So yeah, I use Blender Trek and imported it into Blender. So I have this lip sync template, and I'll go over this pretty quick. But basically, you'll want to have a vocal-only track, whether it's demuxed or official. I have a demuxed here, or it's from the RB4 to RB2 rip. So you want to go to the video editing tab, and if it's not there, you can add it by clicking the plus. I don't remember which one it's under. Oh, it's just under video editing. So you want to have the video editor. You'll want to drag. So these are all the Blender tracks. You want to drag your audio track in here. And you'll want to enable or display the waveform so you can actually see visually where the vocals start. Put the start time at 0. And now these are done in frames, at 60 frames. So now it's at the beginning. So we just have the audio in there, but we'll get to that in a bit. I'm just going to import the original, or the very first, I think it's like the very first na, like the na part. So I'm going to select the zip. I'm going to face rig empties, import the data. And again, this is also an Oktoberfest guide. I might make my own guide just as part of this compiler. But for now, I'll just go through it real quick with you guys. And you want to make sure you have these plugins enabled. I'm assuming you do. If not, again, Oktoberfest does have a guide on that, which I highly recommend watching. And then you want to go to the GH tools. You want to link the Blender track rig. That'll bring the face up here. So now if I press space, that's like the animation that I made. Now I know there's some issues where the eyebrow will suddenly just go up and it'll really look like they're staring. I'm not quite sure how I can fix that in post. It appears to have happened when I was recording. I might fix it in the future, but probably not. So, okay, so if you want to actually sync the lip sync using the audio that you have here, I remember that I started the recording, say, around 5 seconds in. So what you want to do at the start here, and I actually bring out the calculator. Like I said, it's pretty manual, but it's what can you do, right? So you want to do 5, and you want to multiply it by 60. Give us 300. So you'll type at the start place, you'll type in minus 300, and that brings the audio forward by 300 frames. And now when I press play, and you'll actually, before you do, you want to make sure that when you click playback, click sync to audio, so that it doesn't, it renders each frame where it should, and then you press play. So then, so you can see that the audio is slightly behind because, because it starts moving the mouth before the audio kicks in. So then you'll just, you can do trial and error. What I do is I say, okay, where does the mouth open? Okay, around here. So like here is where it starts, and then I move the audio back. That's pretty decent. So say that's where you want it. Oh, and you want to make sure it's even, just because the game actually is in 30 frames per second, so you want to just make sure you have an even number here so that it plays nicely. So in this case, the start is minus 300 or it's 314 frames into the song basically. Then you pull out your calculator, you go 314 divided by 60 because Blender's in 60 frames per second. Okay, so at 5.233 or 5.23, which is actually 1 frame off from where I placed it. So I placed it at 5200 because I thought at the time it started at 312 frames into the song, and you would do that for every single lip sync you have. In Starlight's case, I recorded the just a na 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 loop, and I call that multiple times. As you can see, as you scroll through, you see, okay, there's a lot of these 1As. I just called it a couple times because I didn't feel like recording that lip sync however many times. And that's how you would sync the lip sync. I know that was kind of quick to go through, but that's kind of it. That's kind of the whole thing. If you have questions about it, I can maybe go back to it at a later time. Just because I want to get through the rest of this compiler this evening. So anyway, that's the blank performance. So everything goes in here related to lip sync, loops, and if you have a band play loop, so that this was a Warriors of Rock feature that's been backported to Definitive Edition. If you have any loops in here, make sure you have one for every instrument. Because as soon as you have a loop, the compiler will say, oh, this is a Warriors of Rock style custom, and it won't use the song scripts that you have select. So I'm just going to go to, so this is the original song scripts that I use, and this is what determines the animations. So this is, I believe, the template that you see, and there isn't like a comprehensive list of which ones are available. But basically, the only ones you have to change, if you're using this one, is the pack and anim set for each instrument, except for drums, for both genders. That's all you'd have to change. So if I were to, right now, if I were to use this one, the female guitarist would use these loops, and it has all the cameras in it. It has the different tempos in it, and that's how you would choose your animations. But then the Warriors of Rock way, so that's this is the one I actually started using. For World Tour, these are just set to one called anim loops, which basically are every single animation loop that they've compiled into one file. And that's all you'd have to do. And then in your performance, you can call which loop you want. So for both male and female, and then when converting to Warriors of Rock, it'll use those and put that in the perf file as a Warriors of Rock perf file rather than a Guitar Hero 5 perf file. And what it'll do is it'll just compile like that, and it should work. If you are compiling and you seem to be running into an infinite loop where it hangs, make sure that you're not missing a comma somewhere or not missing a brace somewhere. If you were to save this like this, save this file like this and compile it, it'll hang indefinitely. So if you get a hang, make sure that your braces are properly closed. Okay, and then you want to just link those files in here. Warriors of Rock has one extra file. So I alluded to earlier that you want Onyx, and that is because you want to create using any custom. It doesn't matter which one. Don't remember which one. I think I got a couple in the works here. Okay, original. Okay, so you want to basically load a song into Onyx. Make sure it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter what you load, but you want to just make sure that that the title and artist are correct, because that creates a unique DLC ID, and then you just go to GHWar and create 360. Even if you're creating a PS3 custom, you create a 360 file. So create it, save it somewhere. I already did that, so I'm not going to do it. Wait for it to finish. CFS is the 360 live file. Choose the various settings here. You know, what kind of count off, the drum kit when you are just hitting the pads, vocal gender, scroll speed, as well as the volume of the song. You can either add a value or like a positive value to increase the volume, or a negative value to decrease. Do your tiers. And if you have lip sync that the guitarist or bassist use, you can select the mic here, or checkboxes here, and that will enable you to use the mic in your performance array. This field here is only if you are using World Tour style, or if you're using in World Tour, it's if you're using World Tour style moments, basically meaning you can only have one playing at a time. For Warriors of Rock, it doesn't matter. You can just leave it unchecked. I don't use any moments or band custom mocap at the moment, but if you are, you would select this if you're compiling to World Tour Definitive Edition. Now the last tab is basically some compile settings, and here's where I'll also include the open easy note eventually, as well as the other thing I mentioned. So the first thing I have here is the hammer-on pull-off threshold. So basically this is what it looks at how close a note should be before it turns it into a hammer-on. Default is 170, which is a 12th or a 8th note triplet, plus 10 ticks, which are like the base unit of a MIDI note, just so that in case there's one that's a little bit further away, that it still gets included. If you want 8th notes to be hammer-ons, you just change this to 250. This note value is for when I do Guitar Hero 3 custom, so you can ignore it for now. And if you want, like say 16th notes to not be hammer-ons, you can change it to as low as 90. Basically play around with it. If you don't like what it is, just keep it at 170 and force on or off as needed. There's a different mode. Yeah, I know, at TF, because there's no PC version for Warriors of Rock, so it doesn't really matter. This is only for when I compile to Guitar Hero 3. I'll probably gray it out. Okay, the Hopo, or the hammer-on pull-off mode, is basically how you want the game to make hammer-ons and pull-offs. So the default is Rock Band, where it'll look at the closeness of a note and make it a hammer-on pull-off, as well as use force notes. If you have a note, I'll show a quick example. If you have a chord, followed by a note containing, or if you have a note that comes after a chord that has the same color, this will not be a hammer-on unless you force it. Guitar Hero 3 will make it a hammer-on, as well as actually completely ignore the off forcing, and it'll actually swap the hammer-on status. So if with Guitar Hero 3, say you have this little pattern, Guitar Hero 3 mode, I should say. If you have no notes here, these will be hammer-ons, except for the first one. But if you put the notes here, it'll actually swap the status. So then all of these will be off. But if you were to delete this one, these two will be off, but this one will be on because it's further away. So it would originally be a strum, but because it's been flipped, it'll turn it into a hammer-on. That's what Guitar Hero 3 mode is. It's basically just for Guitar Hero 3 conversions. And then you have Guitar Hero World Tour mode, which is everything is off unless it's forced on. So if you do World Tour mode, all of these notes will be turned off, except for the ones marked by the notes that are by the hammer-on note, or if it's a tap note. But that's the case for all. The compile folder is used only for World Tour, and basically that will place it into, well, you would want to point it to your mods folder, and I may make that a default in the future, so that when you compile it, it creates a folder or just overrides the file. If you're compiling to Warriors of Rock, it actually compiles to your folder where your project file is. And that's the next field here. You will want to say, if the field is blank and hit save, it's the same as hitting save as, it'll bring up a field. Otherwise, save will just override the file. And then you have the actual compiling. You have the option to compile a full song, as well as compile the pack only. You'll want to do this one for the first compile, and then anything afterward, you probably don't need the audio, so you'll want to just process the charts. For audio, you will need either SOX, that's SOX, or FFmpeg. The program will look for both. It'll look for SOX first. Oh, yeah, I'll get to that. It'll look for SOX first, and if it's not found, look for FFmpeg. If you have both and you want to use FFmpeg, check this box. I know people were having problems with it earlier, but okay. So yeah, Beatlines BPM. I missed that. Good call. So in Warriors of Rock and World Tour, by default, anything higher than 120 BPM, or anything lower than 120 BPM will have 16th notes beat lines. Anything lower than 150 BPM will have 8th notes lines, and anything higher than that will just have quarter note lines, unless you have an 8th note, a time signature over 8 or over 16. By activating this field, you can change the threshold. So say, for example, you have a song hovering around 150. The game, any measure or any beat that it sees is under 150 will have 8th note lines, whereas any measure it sees as over 150 will have quarter note lines. You can use this to change the threshold. So say you have a song hovering around 50, but it doesn't go over 160. You just simply change this to 160, and then now the whole song will have 8-note beat lines. This is mainly so you don't see, a mixture of a quarter note and 8th notes. I believe a song that was pretty bad for that was FCP Remix. It constantly showed you more lines and less lines, more lines and fewer lines. So it was kind of weird at first. So basically you can override the threshold here, and then it'll let you have consistent beat lines for the whole song. That's what that was. But for this song, it's all at 142, so I don't have to worry about it. And so, yeah, so I'm compiling to Warriors of Rock because I'm running out of time here. But basically, World Tour will compile to mods. Warriors of Rock will compile to the project folder. So I've already compiled, well, I'll compile the full song just so you can see. Oh, oops. Okay. So it didn't find the file. So basically, we're just compiling. It compiles the chart first, and then it'll compile the audio. So, and while you're compiling, if any audio doesn't exist, it'll use the audio. It'll use the blank audio. The only file that does exist is the master, and it's created it. So now it created the drum, other instruments, other audio preview, and it took about 10 seconds. If you only have one track, like I do, it will take about 10 seconds. Well, depends on your computer. If you have audio in separate audio for each instrument, it will take longer. And okay, so now we've compiled. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just delete this. I'll just recompile real quick, just so you can see that it creates the folder because of this compilation. Oh, and as a small debug, it just shows you what animation or what scripts it's found. So in my performance array, you can see that between what was it? Oh, hang on, okay. So you can see this camera cut effects FOV pulse. That was from my camera's track, not because I included it in here. Although you could include it in this as well if you know exactly where to place it. Okay, so you can see it created this folder. And what we're going to do is using C3, or I use C3 tools just because it's pretty straightforward to use. We're going to replace the files it generated in the STFS file. So I'm just going to go to the STFS folder. What is it? Windows D? There. Okay, so background. In C3, what I do is you drag in your file created by Onyx. It loads up the file. Oh, and one more thing. I mentioned earlier the DLC ID. This is the ID this is the ID that you want to grab. So this 170.767.6586, that's the DLC ID. I should have mentioned that before compiling. That's what the ID is, and I pre-entered it here because I already created this file. So anyway, so you go to Contents, and you go to your compile folder, and basically, since there's only, I think, 8 files, you just right-click each file, click Replace Selected File, and I already have it. So I already have it open because it was the last thing I opened, and then I just replace each file. And I'm sure that either I or someone else will make it much more streamlined in the future, because if you're doing a lot of songs, this is pretty tedious, but hey, it works. After you replace all files, go back to information. Don't change anything in here. You do not want to change the title, because this file here gets read by the game, and this little C36F9733 is actually the checksum of this package title, and if the checksum doesn't match, your song will not load. So don't change anything, unless you want to change the file, but I won't show you how to do that. Anyway, after you completed replacing the files, simply hit save. It shouldn't take too long. There. So once it refreshes like that, it's saved. And you can confirm this by going to the file and checking the modified date, 1055, which is what it is right now. So that's it for if you're compiling the 360. Then you can just add it to your song cache, add both files to your 360, and play the game. For PS3, there is another step. And now this is also, there's a couple steps in here, but what you want is you'll want to go to Onyx Sites, and you'll actually need the command line version. As far as I can tell, what I'm going to use isn't available in the GUI, so just grab the command line. And now I'm using an older version than the June 25th build, simply because the feature wasn't updated since then. So it's that's why I'm using an older version here. So what you want in the command line, it's got some extra files, don't worry about it. So you'll want to go to your Onyx Site command line folder, click the address bar here, type cmd, and it'll open a command line in that folder. Next, just have your 360 file just ready. You'll want to type Onyx port GHPS3 space and drag in your 360 file. Yeah, and hit enter. Remember where I created it. Oh, let me delete it. Do it one more time. It creates a folder in the STFS folder called the same as your 360 file _PS3. Go into userdir, go into this folder, and this will have a bunch of folders, or files, excuse me, with a couple called Replace Me. Now this is actually an old functionality Onyx Site implemented for me for my conversions, or the missing exports, and I am using this again. The only thing is it deletes the audio, because at the time 360 and PS3 had different audio. However, the audio that PS3 uses is compatible with 360, so that's actually what I'm using in the 360 version. So these are the this is actually MP3 audio as opposed to XMA, which official songs use. Anyway, all we have to do is grab the audio. The rest are fine. Just grab the audio, Control C, Control V. So that will change. That'll add them here. And then what you want to do is just grab the Replace Me files. Just slow double click so that it highlights the text. Control copy and paste. Or sorry, replace the name. And I just keep them here until I finish with them all. Last one. And then simply grab all the Replace Me's. Oh, and Onyx, I just mentioned that he'll get that fixed to not zero out the MP3s. Sweet. So this step won't even be needed in the future. delete the replace me files, and then you'll have go back to your Starlight or Starlight. Go back to your song folder where the new folder was made. Then you'll want to go back to your command line, type Onyx again, go pkg. Oh, sorry. Actually, I'm gonna just quickly do one thing here. So in the help section, there's like a template you need to use. So you need to grab a label for content. So I'm just gonna grab this one, go to a blank, and I think I named this Starlight. I don't actually know if it has to be the same length. I've been doing it the same length as this one, but Starlight, I think I called it DLC BA for baby metal. So then just have this ID, and then go back to your terminal, type Onyx pkg, the content, so the label, space, drag in your folder, and hit enter, and it'll do a bunch of stuff. And you see this modified date just turned to 1059, and that's the end of that. So that's the package you can use in your emulator or your PS3 after you add it to the song cache. And that's it. Does anyone have questions or other things they'd like to show? Like me to show? I suppose I could show that. Well, you guys have seen the video, so I won't show that again. Well, I am available on Discord. I am gonna have to sign off here. I know I started way later than originally intended, but thanks everyone for joining. I see quite a few of you guys joined, so I appreciate that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. I am at Addy Mills. I don't think there's any numbers behind there now, so feel free to reach out, and I will be happy to help with anything. Oh yeah, for sure, Onyx. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Spent some time reverse engineering this, so I'd be happy to share.